Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin. These men spoke up for what they thought was right. From their courage came such documents as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. From their willingness to speak what was sometimes unpopular but right, we enjoy such liberties as freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear arms, and freedom of religion. There are those who still wish to oppress our freedoms, and there are still patriots willing to stand up and defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Men like Zeb Bell, who honor our founding fathers and what they stood for. It's now time for Zeb at the ranch, speaking up and defending your freedoms. Brought to you by Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers and all of the other great advertisers on the program. And now, Zeb Bell.
When I read this for the first time, I thought, wow. And then I reread it and I thought, this is absolutely spot on. Even though there are days I wish I could change some things that happened in the past, there's a reason the rear view mirror is so small and the windshield is so big. When you're headed and where you're headed is much more important than what you've left behind. Absolutely. Good morning, everybody. Here comes Kate Smith, and God bless America, followed by Patriot. Come on, Patriots, call in with our Pledge of Allegiance. Good morning, good morning. And good morning to you out there in Radio Land. I'm Zeb Bell, and of course we're right here, Zeb at the Ranch, on a Tuesday, October 8th, with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations with a really big tire sale, fall tire sale going on right now. And also some of our other great advertisers include Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you, along with Greystone Crossing Independent Senior Living at 1221 21st Street in Heyburn. Seniors living the good life with friends. Right now, let's go to our phone line and our Pledge of Allegiance. Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning.
My friend.
I'd like to thank the Lord for such a glorious sunrise this morning.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I love that positive thought. Thank you, Doug. Appreciate it, old buddy. And right now it's time to go to the weather, brought to you by K&R Rental at 256 South, 600 west of Heyburn. Oh, my goodness, they're easy to find right there on the Burley Paul Highway. Hey, listen, they've got all the construction heaters. You know, heaters for construction, electric, propane, all the construction equipment. Oh, by the way, too, if you're trying to get those water lines in, you'd better get over there and check out all the equipment you need. And by the way, they've got the air compressors, too, to blow out those sprinkler lines. All of this and so much more at K&R Rental with Roger and the crew on the Burley Paul Highway, 678-3122. Right now, here's Gina with the weather.
Might want to batten down the hatches for today because the wind is going to be picking up tonight. Here's a look at your weather forecast. We are expecting mostly sunny skies for most of the day today, high of 68 by this afternoon. Winds are going to be picking up out of the south and could gust as high as about 40 miles an hour. Tonight we do have a 20% chance of showers, partly cloudy skies, still going to be breezy, expecting a low of 34. Tomorrow that wind is going to continue, partly sunny skies, high of 38, winds out of the west at about 35 miles an hour, gusts as high as 50 miles an hour for tomorrow. Tomorrow night, 20% chance of showers before midnight, mostly cloudy skies, expecting a low of 20. Winds are going to be calming down for Thursday, sunny skies, high of 40 with an overnight low of 20. Then by Friday, mostly sunny skies and a high of 50. That's a look at your weather forecast for Zeb's Ranch.
Wow, did she say winds up to 50 miles an hour? Look out. Hold on to your resistol. It's going to end up over in the next county. Hey, weather brought to you by K&R Rental at 256 South, 600 west of Heyburn. Yep, easy to find on the Burley-Paul Highway. And Roger and the crew do have the best tools and equipment to finish any kind of a project. Call them if you have questions at 678-3122. Don't forget, Thursday is sale day at the Burley Livestock Sale Yard, 1100 Occidental Avenue in Burley, with Merv May, Cade Rogge, and Lance Udy. It's the sale that works for you. 11 o'clock starting time, and I know that we're going to have a lineup of some of the cattle going through the ring on Thursday morning, so be listening. Number to call for cattle consignments and sale information, 678-9411. Burley Livestock Sale Yard in Burley, with the sale that works for you on Thursdays at 11 o'clock. Wow, there's so much going on in the news this morning, and we're going to be very, very blunt in presenting it to you the way we see it, and not adding or taking away from anything. And we're going to be talking about the wackos that are protesting again, and still, the appointment to the Supreme Court of Judge Kavanaugh. And there's just so many things that are going on out there this morning. Caller, stand by just a minute. I want to remind everybody about Daryl's Cleaners, and they're located at 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. I keep talking about them every single day on the program and mentioning to you they are the best at what they do, not only with dry cleaning, but also with washing your clothes if you don't have time. Wash, dry, fold, and iron all your clothes, just like Mama used to do. All you need to do is stop in and see those good folks today. Daryl's Cleaners, and they're located at 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. You see them, and by golly, they'll take care of your clothing. Always have for me, they will for you at Daryl's Cleaners. Caller, good morning. You're on the air as I almost choked to death. Good morning.
You know, Zev, I am so disturbed about people, well, even bringing up this Kavanaugh situation, but to hide in the darkness like our whistleblowers.
Oh, brother.
Why don't they come out and say who they are and face their person they've accused?
You know, Keith, we've talked about this before on the program, and it's easy to lay in the weeds and throw out accusations about somebody's character or impugn somebody and say they did this or they did that, and then hide and not have your face known or your voice heard except through media. I find it repulsive and disgusting. If you're going to make an accusation to somebody or about someone or something, stand up, be counted, and at least have the bravery of standing up for your convictions.
You know, this weekly mailer that's been around for probably close to 20 years now, they don't require you to sign your name when you put an ugly statement in their newspaper about someone else. I think that is so disgraceful. I've talked to the publisher about it, but he seems to think that's how he gets his better distribution.
Well, I'll tell you what, as far as his distribution is concerned, I couldn't care less. I find it very appalling that you have to rely on sensationalized journalism to try to push a publication. Right is right, wrong is wrong, and by not publishing names when people... It's happened to me in that publication. It happened about 3-4 years ago where there were letters against me, which is fine. Everybody's got a right to their opinion. They've got a right to criticize. But when you do, at least have the backbone. There's another couple of words I wanted to use. At least have the backbone to stand up for your convictions and your thoughts and sign your name. And anybody that perpetrates anonymous letters, in my opinion, I'm just going to lay it out there, they are absolutely sloppy journalists.
Well, it's not only that little newspaper, it's that social media that comes out. I remember when I closed down my business, I do not use social media. If I can't get it on the radio or the newspaper or personally from you, I don't need it. But I had people slander me about this and that and the other, but they would not say who they were.
Yeah, and I give that no credence. You know, everybody says, well, just let it run like water off a duck's back. Well, it hurts. I mean, when somebody is criticized in the press and you don't know who your critics are, that's totally unfair and not at all good journalism. And it sometimes is very, very shallow to sit there and say, oh, don't let it bother you. Well, you're doggone right it bothers you when there's allegations that are unfounded and untrue, and you want to have at least the opportunity to say back to your accusers you're full of hot air or whatever other substance.
Well, you know, being a whistleblower, they should have to face the person they've been accused.
Yeah, where's the credibility?
Not right.
Where's the credibility? I mean, I could sit here today. I could sit here right on this radio program today, and I could say a completely fictitious story about how, well, I was back there visiting relatives, and I overheard a conversation, and boy, this is going to take Trump's boat out of the water for 2020. I could start the same thing. So could you, Keith Cottom. And there's got to be verification. There's got to be validation, or else it's not even worthy putting out.
You know, I'm on a roll. This is the second day in a row that we've agreed.
Don't push your luck.
Isn't this wonderful?
Thanks, Keith. God bless you, man.
Hey.
Thanks. All right. Hey, don't forget Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley, 678-0459, the number to call. They open at 7:30 in the morning till 5, Monday through Friday, and literally provide all your heating, cooling, and electrical needs. That's not bragging. That's absolutely a fact. And now with winter just kind of creeping around the corner and nodding its head at us, you better be ready with your furnace filters. And they've got all your furnace filters at Ramsey Heating and Electric. Slogan is right. They provide warm winters and cool summers at Ramsey Heating and Electric in Burley, 678-0459. Caller, I'll be right there. Stand by. I also want to acknowledge our friends, your friends, everybody's friend at America's Diner, and I'm talking about Denny's Restaurant. Oh, my. 611 North Overland in Burley and 291 Pole Line Road in Twin Falls. You know, the menu changes and the additions and everything are just absolutely delicious. That's the only word I can use to really describe it. Delicious, whether it's breakfast, lunch, dinner, desserts, anytime, all the time, with extra special nice people serving you. What else could you ask for? Stop in today. It's the home of Zeb's Lunch Bunch, Denny's Restaurant, 611 North Overland in Burley, and yes, sirree, Bobby, it's true. It is America's Diner. Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, sir.
My friend.
I think Judge Janine said it best last Sunday or Saturday on her show. She called him a sack of shift.
Boy, did you. I got to tell you something. All of a sudden, I had perspiring beads of sweat following down my side of my face when you started that. I thought, Dougie, don't.
No, I didn't pull my mother on you.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that. Oh, my. Anyway, I've had it. And, you know, there's been a lot of criticism out this morning about Trump telling the ambassador, Sundgren, or whatever his last name is right now. I'm just a little vague on trying to remember his name, not to testify before that House hearing. I don't blame him. I said, if you'll think back last week, and I said it again yesterday, if I were Donald Trump, I would not cooperate in any way, shape, or form from this point forward.
Exactly. And I want to ask everybody out there, in what arena or what court or what accusations can somebody bring against somebody that is hearsay?
Yeah.
I mean, where does it stand up? If you bring a hearsay, well, I heard so-and-so said this, and you're up on the witness stand, the judge is not going to allow that. It's got to be first-hand information.
Well, you're testifying when you go to court. You're testifying that all events, all statements, and everything connected to your part of the case are absolutely true when you put your hand on the Bible and say, "So help me God." So how can you do that when you have secondhand information that you really don't know is valid or not?
Exactly. This is just impeachment 2.0 against President Trump. They failed on all their other fronts, so now they're wanting to do it some more. The only way the Democrats think they can beat President Trump is to impeach him.
Yeah.
That's the only way they think they can beat him. They cannot beat him on the economy. They cannot beat him on national security. They cannot beat him on trade deals with foreign countries. The man is running circles around him, and what it is Adam Schiff is doing a kangaroo court where you only hear one side. He wants a FISA court so he can impeach the president.
Yeah.
So they only hear one side, where the other side is not represented.
I have a little theory on this that I will share with you quickly and give me your response. I honestly feel that within the next 2 to 3 weeks maximum, we will see this go down the drain for the Democrats. But during the interim of this issue taking up all the news nationwide and, for that matter, worldwide, there is something going on behind the scenes, in my opinion, that will all of a sudden be coming out from behind the curtain and take over the news again for the Democrats. And you want to know what my theory is?
Go ahead. I think it's that FISA investigation.
No, absolutely nothing to do with it. My theory is that Hillary will step forward and take over the lead for rerunning again for the presidency.
I hope she does. I really do. I hope she does, and then President Trump can bring out all of the things that she has done illegally. Look how much money Ukraine donated to the Clinton Foundation for a small, corrupt, broke country.
Yeah.
Over $10 million.
But think about it. This rather crazed old lady, I can say that because her and I are in the same age bracket, but this crazed old lady has done nothing but criticize and calling President Trump an illegitimate president and calling all of his supporters deplorables, which means you and me. And I would really like you relish her to get involved in the campaign, because I'll tell you what I would do on this program. I would devote every single day to research going into her uranium deals with Uranium One, all of the things with her husband Wild Bill, everything she did, all the connections of people that they were with, some which didn't see the light of the next day. If you get my drift. I'm going to go into everything about this old woman that should be rocking on the back porch.
Exactly. Well, I have a better place she should be rocking if justice was equal in America. If we didn't have a two-tiered justice system, I know where she would be.
Well, I'll tell you what, I just think a lot of this is smokescreen to buy time for the Democrats. That's my own personal opinion. If I'm wrong, so what? That's my opinion.
Yeah, well, look at Elizabeth Warren.
Oh, boy.
Going to be the leader. I mean, that... Talk about not being able to get a story straight. Remember what she said over 14 years ago.
She's just a false front building in the Old West. She is right now taking over the lead on the Democratic nominee ticket, if you will, and she's not a candidate. I mean, she would fall apart like a house of cards. That's why I'm telling you, look out. There's a buildup in the back room for Hillary.
Well, I think they was building up wanting Michelle to step in.
Oh, heaven help us all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think Michael decided not to.
I got to run. Thank you, my friend. All right.
Everybody,
thank you.
Let's do what we can for senior centers. Let's support them. Let's donate to them this holiday season to help the Meals on Wheels. God bless.
All right, Doug. Thank you very much. Hey, by the way, I want to remind you that Ramsey Heating and Electric and Lennox are all teamed up to offer you the iComfort Wi-Fi thermostat. Now, what it does is feature remote control access so you can adjust your home's temperature from anywhere, anytime. Now, call them. Ramsey Heating and Electric and Lennox offering up to $1,600 in rebates on a new system. So keep yourself comfy. You're going to be spending a lot of time indoors. Call them at 678-0459 for details. Want to also give a great big shout out to some people that I really, really appreciate, and that's Ark Animal Hospital at 750 21st Street near Connection Credit Union in Heyburn. The caring is absolutely phenomenal for their patients. They care about your dogs, your cats, horses, dairy cattle, everything. They care, and they want them to be healthy. Absolutely. Ark Animal Hospital at 750 21st Street near Connection Credit Union in Heyburn. The number to call and the number to keep right there on your refrigerator, 678-1177. I'll say it again, 678-1177. It's really true. Ark Animal Hospital, Dr. Bill and the crew, they have warm hearts for the cold noses. Caller, I'll be right there. Stand by. Also want to remind everybody about Dino's Septic Service. Oh, my goodness sakes. You know, here you go. They do a job. There's a lot of jobs in this old world that a lot of folks don't want to do or be a part of. Well, you don't want to be out there pumping a septic tank, but when it needs pumping, yeah, there you go. You look in the phone book and you say, there's Dino's Septic Service. I'm going to call them, and they're going to provide me fast, fair, friendly service. And they do. They do. I know because they work for us. Number to call, 436-6526 or 678-1638. Yep, it's true. Fast, fair, friendly service with that big old truck that comes in the yard that says, smells cargo on the way. They know their business, and they'll take care of you at Dino's Septic Service. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Deb, from Burley Senior Center on South Overland. Today we're having shepherd's pie, veggies, green salad, cook's choice for dessert. I don't know what it'll be, but it's going to be good.
Joe, where did...
$5.
Okay, $5.
And I'll have it ready for you.
All right, $5. Now, let me ask you this. Shepherd's pie. Where do you think they got the name for that?
That's a long time since I've had shepherd's pie. But I guess the shepherd put it all in one pot and cooked it up. Okay,
well, Joe, you know all the food angles, and you know what's going to be great, what's going to be super to eat over at the Senior Center on Oberlin, so thank you for your call, my friend.
Thank you.
All right, buddy. There he goes. Good man, Joe Taylor. Appreciate him. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. You know, let me ask you this, and if you think I'm all wet on this, please call me and let me know. But the whole thing about this impeachment of Donald Trump, it's political. It's all political. You know it. I mean, come on. Look through the fog. Look through the mist. It's getting closer and closer, 13 and a half months until the election in 2020? You know the Democrats are sitting there just as worried as little kids that are in trouble with the teacher. You know that they got to figure out some kind of a strategy to get rid of Donald Trump. You know they've got to come up with something, anything, or everything they can possibly dig out from under a rock that's going to disparage his running for re-election. You know they're going to do anything they can, but I listened to a Democratic strategist last night, and I don't like the guy. I've never met the guy. Never met him, don't want to meet him. A guy by the name of Chris Hahn was on television last night, and one of the real radical left Democrats that absolutely went into a rant and said that Trump would be thrown out of the White House by spring. He said there's going to be many, many Republicans that would vote against Donald Trump in the Senate, and Trump will be history. And I'm going to say this. Those Republicans like Mitt Romney, and I know some people are going to be offended by this. I have no respect for Mitt Romney. None. He's a crybaby wannabe. Let me say it again, a crybaby wannabe. And if you go ahead and throw Donald Trump out of the office prior to the election, I honestly think, and I'm very concerned, and my wife and I have talked about this, I think you're going to see a civil war in this country that's going to erupt in terrible violence for what the Democratic Party is doing to literally take over the election, take over the country with absolute total control. And as a matter of fact, even yesterday, MSNBC, some of their commentators came out and said after the impeachment of both the president and the vice president, they were absolutely savoring the thought of having Nancy Pelosi be president. Lord help us all. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Well, I tell you what, I guess they just have to say what people want to hear. Because they've lied so long that, people just want to hear the lies. They want to fantasize about it. I tell you, one of the things that I do, the point of this call is this. During the day, I'll listen to, this station, and then I'll switch over later, and I'll listen to, Rush and Hannity. But Ben Shapiro is on both a station here in Burley and then in Twin. He's on this station in Twin. And I like to listen to him because of this. He's fair and he's logical. And never has Ben said anything that I can, that I know of, that unless I missed something. But I listened to him last night, and he thinks this is all a big waste of time. It's a big joke. The whistleblower one was a joke. Schiff is involved with all this. The second whistleblower, what's he going to say that's any different than what was already said? Nothing. And Shapiro doesn't think there's anything here at all. And then I feel very comfortable that he is, on it and as fair as anybody that I can, listen to. So it's a lot of talk. They're desperate. They know they're going to lose the election. Elizabeth Warren, Wall Street doesn't like her. Biden is on the rope. Bernie's had a heart attack. And Kamala Harris can't get any traction. So I don't know who's left, Pete and Beto. I mean, it's a joke.
Well, it's a joke, all right, Randy, but it's not a funny, laughable, ha-ha joke. It's a joke against America. It's absolutely a Wizard of Oz type thing. Pull the curtain back, and you get a chance to see how absolutely repulsive and stupid the Democrats are going into this election. They don't have anybody. And I'm going to make a statement here also about Joe Biden and his son Hunter. I think that this thing is going to blow up before Christmas to the point where a lot of people are going to be going, Joe who? Because this deal with Biden and his son is going to show the absolute corruption that's going on in politics with another political family.
Well, this is the thing. The economy's roaring so much, and no matter what they say, they can't dump it. And I was riding Sunday on my bike, my hog, and I was behind a truck. And it said $5,000 signing bonus if you sign up with us. And I guess there has to be certain stipulations. And if you have a team, say you and your wife were both capable of driving and you're both in the truck, $4,400 a week clear. That's take home. And this is the kind of economy that we've got. I was in Twin yesterday on a job, for garage door job, and there was a couple of Hispanic fascia and soffit guys. And I asked them if they had saw this cat, and they didn't know what I meant. And so, I know they're not legal, and I don't know what to do. I can't turn them in. I just know that somebody's got to do the work. And the poor, pitiful white kids. Sure, there's lots of good ones, but there's lots of them that are trying to figure out a way to cheat, do this or that. I mean, you got to know that if we don't keep this economy running, it may tank.
I got to run, Randy.
Labor.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I got another call waiting, but I got to run, partner. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I agree with him. One thing we've got to reinstill in this society, and I don't care if somebody's offended by this because it's the truth. And I only speak the truth on this program. If it offends you, that's your problem, not mine. We've got to re-implement and reinstill a work ethic to our kids. Oh, Johnny, go clean the stalls today. Oh, Susie, I want you to go do this. Johnny, I want you to mow that lawn. Johnny, I want you to rake the leaves. I want you to go work if you're going to be a part of our family situation. Teach them about how to go to work. That's something that is lacking in our society. Caller, I'll be right there. Don't forget Ramsey Heating and Electric and Lennox, of course, like I said moments ago, teamed up with the iComfort Wi-Fi thermostat from Lennox, featuring remote control access to adjust your home's temperature from anywhere. Contact Ramsey Heating and Electric today at 678-0459. Ramsey's, along with Lennox, offering up to $1,600 in rebates on a new system. Check it out today, ramseysonline.com. Thank you, caller. Good morning. You're on the air.
Yes, good morning, Zeb. I can't understand why anyone would want to vote for the Democratic Party. For 3 years, they've concentrated on one thing, and that's destroying Donald Trump. They've done nothing about bridges, repair work, about hospitalization, about the border. They have stolen money from the taxpayers because all they're interested in is destroying a guy that has done so much for this country that had been lacking for I don't know how many years. Look what he's done for the economy. Look what he's done for minority people.
Yeah.
Democrats have done nothing.
You know, you're spot on, and Trump has raised a lot of eyebrows for things that he's trying to incorporate and trying to get done, including the pullout of Syria yesterday, which made a lot of Democrats and Republicans sit there and go, what is he doing? A lot of them want to keep a continuation of wars and more wars in the Middle East, thinking that it's going to stimulate our economy and everything, but I'm glad that Trump is living up to his campaign promises. I like the guy. I'm not saying that I like everything he stands for, but I like the guy and what he's doing as a president, and I will fight for him and his reelection because I am scared to death what these slovenly, perverted Democrats would do to America.
I could just imagine what would happen if the Democrats got in. This country would be in a revolution.
Yeah.
There'd be more unemployment. There'd be murders out in the street. We'd have gangs running all over the place. There would be anarchy in this country.
I'm not going to dispute your theory whatsoever. As a matter of fact, I think chaos is the word that I would use as to what's going to happen if we allow any one of these Democrats to take over the power of the presidency, and my goodness help us if they also get the power of the Senate. I mean, anything and everything can happen. And the idiocy and incompetency of people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez would absolutely reign supreme. And then it's Katie bar the door as to what's going to happen in this country, Tony.
Well, people like Cortez, an empty barrel makes a lot of noise, and that's all these people have in their brains is nothing.
I didn't know they could make a barrel that big.
Oh, well, for barrels that big, you can put a couple of other people in with Cortez.
There you go. God bless you. Hey, by the way, I saw your lovely wife the other day in town, and she looks great. And you go over and give her a great big kiss for us and tell her hello.
Well, she's one of them tough Tennesseans.
I'll tell you what, her and Davy Crockett, I wouldn't mess with either one of them.
I know what you're talking about.
Thanks. Appreciate it, Tony.
Zeb.
All right, God bless you, man.
All right, thank you.
Oh, they're special people, special people. I want to remind you about Berry Equipment and Rental. 3 locations, 159 West Highway 30 in Burley. By the way, at the Burley location, they've got the hammer drills and bits up to 2 inches at the Burley store. I want to remind you about that before I forget. They've got all the Doosan wheel loaders. They've got all the excavators. They got all the Bobcats. And I'm telling you, when you got jobs that entail lifting and digging and pushing and carrying and grading and leveling, you want the equipment that's going to get the job done. Get a hold of Berry Equipment and Rental, 159 West Highway 30 in Burley, 465 Addison Avenue West in Twin, and the Nampa location. They are the best at what they do, Berry Equipment and Rental. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Morning, Zeb. It's Earl.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to throw something out there, and I kind of caught it this morning when I was going through the news programs. Are we becoming a nation that loves the use of our money more than our freedom? Are we? In other words, I'm trying to say, are we giving up our freedom for the use of money?
Yes.
Maybe in the looking at the credit.
Yes.
Side of it?
Yes. I don't care what anybody says, the almighty dollar, and I use that in a derisive tone, is taking over first place as to what people really are searching for as somewhat of a new god. I absolutely agree with you that we've lost sight of values, we've lost sight of ethics, we've lost sight of our beloved Constitution, and the almighty dollar has taken first place. I agree with you.
Well, and then it's back to what you were talking about just a few minutes ago was, we've let our kids kind of go by the wayside and not taught them work ethics. So
now, let me ask you a question real quick, Earl, and I've got to go to the weather forecast. But how many parents do you know that have kids that are still teenagers and at home that really are strict about those kids adhering to a chore schedule every day, 7 days a week, and are very strict about this has got to be done or else? I mean, how many do you really know?
it's hard to come by today, Zeb. I do my best here. I've got kind of a family I'm working with right now that's pretty well to their limits, but he's becoming a good helper. About 2 times I'm mentioning what needs to be done here in preparation for the winter, and he starts catching on fairly really fast.
Oh, what I'm saying is that we've got too many Dr. Spockish types out here that over the last 20 years or so have taken the family, the American family, and they've told everybody through the media, oh, you can't make those kids work. Why, that's not legal. You can't do this. Why, we're going to sue if you make little Johnny go to work. And I say bunk. The problem in this country, we've got a lot of jobs available, and we've got a lot of people that should be working, but they're too darn lazy to go to work and be productive members of our society.
If you remember, when we were growing up, what was thrown in front of our faces was our parents wanted us to grow up to be doctors and lawyers. That seemed to be the trend at that time 50 years ago. I think you probably remember that.
No, I do. And I was told, gee, you ought to be a lawyer. And I took some pre-law and all that kind of stuff. And, I have said for a long time on this program, Earl, and you've heard me, that there was too much of a push for college and university education. There was too much push to be the white collar with the different paisley tie, etc. We overlooked being electricians. We overlooked being construction experts. We overlooked being plumbers, and now that's coming back to haunt us.
Well, the strength of this country came from when, and I've said this before, the strength of this country came from when 50% of our population were small family farms.
That's right. Yeah. I agree. Earl, it's always good to hear from you, the man up on top of the mountain this morning. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm just digging in for the cold weather coming.
Okay. Well, dig a little bit for me.
Down good, too, Zeb. The wind's going to blow.
Okay, I understand that. Thank you. Time for the weather, and I want to start the weather by saying this, and I want you to take a piece of paper and a pencil. Come on now, help me out, and write down a new number for Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. All right, you ready, class? Here we go. 208, you know that. Then 417-8799. Now, let's go over it again. Make sure I didn't make a mistake in giving it to you. 208-417-8799. There you go. Now, when you're developing any kind of a hearing problem, I want you to call the number I just gave you at Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. It's going to take me a little time to remember this number every day, but I want you to remember it because you need to call them. I've already been there. They've already helped me, and they can help you. So why don't you just write that number down, like I said, 208-417-8799, and schedule your free consultation with Mount Harrison Audiology today. Your hearing is very important. They know that. They can help. They will at Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. Right now, here's Gina with the weather.
Might want to batten down the hatches for today because the wind is going to be picking up tonight. Here's a look at your weather forecast. We are expecting mostly sunny skies for most of the day today, high of 68 by this afternoon. Winds are going to be picking up out of the south and could gust as high as about 40 miles an hour. Tonight we do have a 20% chance of showers, partly cloudy skies, still going to be breezy, expecting a low of 34. Tomorrow that wind is going to continue, partly sunny skies, high of 38, winds out of the west at about 35 miles an hour, gusts as high as 50 miles an hour for tomorrow. Tomorrow night, 20% chance of showers before midnight, mostly cloudy skies, expecting a low of 20. Winds are going to be calming down for Thursday, sunny skies, high of 40 with an overnight low of 20. Then by Friday, mostly sunny skies and a high of 50. That's a look at your weather forecast for Zeb Grant.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And brought to you by Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. And, of course, the new number, 208-417-8799. You call them today. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning again. You know, I always like hearing the words of wisdom from Earl. That guy is a deep thinker and really a good man. But what I want to ask you, Zeb, is you have a college education, and let's set aside the business part that you learned in college. What did you actually get out of it?
Well, wait a minute. That's kind of an all-encompassing statement. I went to two universities. One not a junior college. At that time, it was a small, very small college, fairly close to home. And then I went to the University of Wisconsin, and unfortunately, I turned into too much play and not enough work at the University of Wisconsin. And we had a mutual agreement at the university that I should stay home. And I worked for a while, and then all of a sudden I realized I wanted to get into communications and broadcasting and went back to college and got my degree and everything. So all that being said, what I got out of it is what I put into it. And I got out of it a great education, and I took that away and came out here and applied myself. And I'm not going to back water for anybody. I'm very proud of what I've accomplished in my career.
Well, you certainly have. And just think back, if, say, 40 years ago, if you could have started a show like you've got now, it would probably be nationally syndicated.
No, wait a minute. I'm going to stop you right there. It doesn't make any difference when it started. We're listened to right now on the internet every single day all across the United States, and for that matter, the world. Dr. History's segment that I started on this program about 15 years ago is heard in about 35, 40 different world countries. I'm not at all unhappy about where I am am today. I'll go up against Limbaugh. I'll go up against Laura Ingraham. I'll go up against anybody because I feel I do the work. I do the information gathering. And so why are they any better than anybody else? No, they're not. I feel like I can play in their league, and I will.
Okay, let me ask you this. How good were you at debating?
You know, I don't know why you're making this truth or consequences for me, but I'll just tell you that, and a lot of people won't believe this, but it's a fact, I was really pretty shy in high school, and I didn't do any of the debating and everything until I finally got out and went to school in college, and I realized the real me shoots his mouth off too much, but now I can make a living doing it.
Well, that's a wonderful thought, but you know what Earl was talking about. It just made me want to ask you this. But the other question I have is, where you're streamed worldwide, how come more people from out of our area don't give you a call?
Well, I think they do. We do get a lot of calls from out of the area, and I'm not going to lay myself out on the line and say we don't. I mean, how do you think I managed to get all these people on my program like Dave Bego or Frosty Woldridge on a continuous basis, or for that matter, Rick Manning? Rick Manning, the head of a great, big, huge operation in Washington, D.C., a think tank, Americans for Prosperity. They don't play around with little podunk radio programs.
Yeah, like Judge Janine.
Well, okay, there's another example. There's another example. You know, I guess it sounds like I'm tooting my own horn, and I'm not. I'm just telling the truth. I've got these people on my program because they trust me, they like the program, and they know they're going to be treated fairly.
What more can you say?
There you go. Thank you.
You bet.
All right, buddy. Thanks a lot. I got to tell you, there's so much I wanted to get into this morning. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, real quick, I'm going to tell you this story because it just absolutely, it just grits on me. It grits and grates on me. Now she's come out, and she's got to be the poster girl for complete stupidity. She comes out and says that we must diminish and start to curtail prisons in this country. She says that they're inhumane and way too harsh. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And my only response quickly to her would be, if she was sitting right here in the studio looking at me, I would look at her and say, that is the most idiotic and most stupid and insane remark I've heard, my dear, because never once, when you were talking about prisons being inhumane and too harsh, did you ever address the gut-wrenching experience of the victim or the victim's families. You don't care about them. You're just saying, oh, well, prisons are too harsh. I'm more concerned about the victims of crime and the victim's family of crime. I'm not that concerned about the perpetrators. Caller, real quick, I'll give you a minute before I have to run. Go fast.
Zeb, I saw just a little bit about what you're talking about. I haven't seen the full story, but she says they're inhumane and harsh. That's because those people that inhabit those places are exactly inhumane and harsh. And so that's what you need to confine those people.
Doesn't it appall you, caller, real quick, give me an answer on this. Doesn't it appall you that when these nincompoops always address, oh, the poor criminal, why, we've got to make life better for them, why, we can give them rehabilitation even if they're a serial killer, oh my goodness, what about the victim and the victim's families, for Pete's sakes?
Yeah, the victims should always come first.
Amen.
They're the ones that need the help the most.
Amen. Thank you for your call, sir. Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Have a good day, Zeb.
Thank you, sir. I really get irate when I listen to the absolute insanity that's being spewed like venom from the left with no educated background whatsoever. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a not very well-educated bartender, now leads the Democratic Party? That ought to tell you what to do when you step into the voting booth next year. Ay, ay, ay. Don't forget the Big Fall Tire Sale going on at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, and you can save some money. Absolutely save up to $152 on a set of 4 select light truck and SUV tires. Like the Backcountry All-Terrain or the Terramax HT. All of this, and boy, all the tires that are on the sale for this Big Fall Tire Sale, you better get in there for your cars, pickups, SUVs, camp trailers, horse trailers, whatever. Stop in and see them today. Along with that, the best in brake service, front-end alignment, shocks and struts, batteries. It's going to get cold. Make sure your battery's a good one. Stop in. They've got them all at Lane and Rupert. Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family in Paul, Daniel on Poline in Twin Falls, and Trent on Overland in Burley. The best, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Got to run to the news. I'll be back in 7. Oh my, it works a lot better according to what I learned in school, that if you want to say something, turn the microphone on. Morning, hour number 2, Zeb at the Ranch, and of course brought to you by our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations, serving you with a great big fall tire sale going on right now. You stop in, save money, and drive on the safest of tires. Also, some of our advertisers like Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. And Greystone Crossing, independent senior living at 1221 21st Street in Heyburn. What a beautiful place. Seniors living the good life with friends. Right now, Wheels, can we have a good word for Western Waste?
From the canyons of the Snake River and all across southern Idaho, we're always at your disposal. Western Waste Services, we care about our community, our resources, and this free land. Western Waste Services is lending a hand, always at your disposal. Western Waste Services.
Oh, Western Waste Services, you know, it's really the truth. They are there to serve you and always at your disposal. They've got dumpsters in various sizes, and if you need one, call them. They'll bring it over to you. You fill it up, they'll come and get it. I'm telling you, I need an extra large, please. I'm cleaning out my office. Anyway, you give them a call, 734-6969. Western Waste Services, as they say, always at your disposal. Want to remind you, too, about Ramsey Heating and Electric and Lennox, all teamed up to help you with the iComfort Wi-Fi thermostat, which features remote control access, so you can adjust your home's temperature from anywhere, anyplace. Right now, Ramsey Heating and Electric and Lennox offering up to $1,600 in rebates on a brand spanking new home comfort system. Check it out. Ramsey Heating and Electric at 678-0459. And before we get my good buddy on the phone, Dan Kish, I want to remind you, too, about some other really, really nice and caring people. And that's, of course, the staff and management of Hanson Mortuary at 710 6th Street in Rupert with Joel Heward, the manager. They care. I mean, that's the bottom line. They provide the families they serve with the best possible support and comfort, and always upholding the highest ethical standards with unquestioned integrity. A very difficult time when there's the passing of a loved one, and they want to serve you. Absolutely. Hanson Mortuary at 710 6th Street in Rupert. The number to call, 436-5636. And Joel Heward also serving you at Morrison Payne Funeral Home on East Main in Burley. On Tuesdays, and I guess to use kind of an old Western phrase, much obliged, I am much obliged to this man for taking the time to come on our program and talk about energy or the lack thereof. And that's Dan Kish with the American Energy Alliance. Good morning, my friend. How are you?
Good morning, Zeb. Good. I hope you had a good birthday last week.
I did. My wife made an excellent cake, and we had people over, we had family over, and the old man got a chance to blow out the candles, and after I was done blowing out 72 of them, I had to go on a respirator. Anyway, it was a good birthday.
Good. That's the way it should be. Friends and family.
You know, Dan, and Wheels, you've got to run that feedback a little bit, Dan, or Wheels over at the station, please. Dan, I want to tell you this morning, I want to talk about something that was brought to my knowledge here a couple of days ago, that the commercial fishing industry, which is extremely important to the United States, and for that matter the world, is in jeopardy off the coast of the United States, the East Coast, because of a proposal to put in hundreds and hundreds of what I think are cancer sticks, those wind turbines, out in the ocean, and it could be extremely dangerous, not only for the fishing, but also for the crew and the vessels. I'd like you to comment on that a little bit.
Yeah, well, Deb, you know, this is the latest idea for them to come up with. They've done some of this in Europe, and it's not going over very well with a lot of the fishermen on the East Coast who have to ply those waters, because we're talking about monstrous things. I mean, these things are 600 feet tall. They've got enormous blades. They really do put out a lot of electricity when they work. But it also turns out that because of the cost of construction offshore, they cost about 3 times as much as onshore wind. And they're trying to get those costs down. But you know, there's a number of reasons why folks have concerns about it. And so what's happened is the Department of Interior, which is involved in the leasing of these, has begun to look into some of these problems. There's issues with naval vessels. We've got a lot of defense installations along the East Coast, and the ability to when you're talking about that, you're talking about airplanes as well. Jet aircraft that are zipping low to the water for training purposes and that sort of thing. All of these things make it very complicated, but, you know, the folks who like these subsidies that come from this, and they do get subsidized, it's basically a subsidy machine, want and are pushing real hard, and so we're going to see what happens. But it causes a lot of concern from a lot of different parts.
One of the things, Dan, that I was made aware of, and I asked a very good friend of mine back in D.C. to email me this information, but it's jamming up the radar. When these extremely tall, like you said, over 600 feet in the air turbines are spaced apart in a row, I have seen pictures, and I have one in my hot little hand, as to when radar is purveying the area and trying to figure out for the navigator where to go and what's going on. The radar has been jammed up because of these wind turbines, and they're saying this is really a security issue, which could entail our Navy, our Air Force, etc., let alone the boats that are trying to navigate through that area.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things they're trying to get to the bottom of, just exactly what happens when you've got all these whirling dervishes out there. You know, and they're enormous, big, huge metal facilities that with blades the length of 747 wings, swirling through the air, and you've got a whole bunch of them. It obviously creates sort of a bath of radar fog that could cause problems in navigation as well as airplanes, and as you say, the national defense interest. The Norfolk, and which is a huge naval base, in Virginia along the coast could be affected by this because it's I believe our largest naval base, and not only do they run ships out of there, but they also run sorties, and once they're at sea, they're running sorties for training purposes and the like. Not to mention the fact that they're doing defense recon and drug interdiction and everything else.
You know, Dan, and by the way, to my engineer, Wheels, you're going to have to turn Mr. Kish up a little bit when he's speaking, please, and then ride that gain. Thank you. Dan, another item that was sent to me, and this scares me just looking at it, and with your expertise, you can tell us. I've got a picture in my hand showing existing wind turbines out in the ocean, and right next to one of the wind turbines, or trying to go through between a couple of them, is a ship. It looks like a commercial fishing ship. And to make a long story short, I have had on the program twice the captain of the captain of the Time Bandit that's featured on the television show Deadliest Catch. And he told me that in the middle of some of those absolutely horrendous storms, they're totally out of control. They have no control whatsoever, and the sea basically is going to be the master of that ship. My goodness, with all of these wind turbines out in the ocean, these ships could be absolutely mashed and crashed against these wind turbines. These pilots of these ships have no control whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely true. The fact of the matter is, and one of the things that you realize, we don't realize, I'm a flatlander originally, and I don't see a lot of those things, but what we don't really realize is just exactly how much commerce is transported by ship. I mean, everything from the fuels we use, even though we're becoming independent, we trade back and forth different types of fuels to foodstuffs to cars and products of all kinds from all around the world, both coming and going. And these ports are like airports, with ships going 24/7, and regardless of weather conditions. And the idea that you'd be placing them in harm's way by doing something which isn't necessitated. And then, of course, all of this is predicated under the assumption that there's really no need for this, Zeb.
Absolutely.
I mean, these are all kind of Rube Goldberg scenarios cooked up by people, frankly, who don't wish this country any goodwill, to try to drive up the cost of electricity, make it more dear, so we'll use less. I mean, that's their whole mode. So we're doing all these things. It's costing all this money, not only taxpayer money, but private investor money taken away from other things. And they're doing it for no good reason. We've got all the coal in the world. We've got a century plus of natural gas, and we're finding more every year. We just found 100 billion barrels worth of natural gas in the last 2 years, largest increase in world history, right here at home. And we've got hydro, we've got nuclear, we've got you name it, and yet here we are importing windmills from foreign countries for no good reason.
You know, I guess the obvious question is, Dan, you and I have been friends on the radio for a long time. Explain to me, I'm an old man, maybe I'm missing something. Why would some group or people on a board of directors, i.e. our own Idaho Power, say that in 20 years they're going to go completely green with just wind and solar as their, what they call, efficient energy program, when we already have an efficient energy program with the multiplicities of what God has given us with assets and natural resources? Why do we want to regress instead of progress?
Well, I mean, honestly, they're in the business of making money, Zeb. And if they can charge people more for the same product, and if they can make more money, for the same product. If you, it's sort of like people got into these fancy coffees. You used to buy you buy a can of U-Ban and 3-pound can or something. Then you keep the cans, put them in the workshop, and nowadays they're paying $6 a cup. In some of these cities at some fancy coffee house, and so what they figured out is how to take something that is a staple that people use and make it into a luxury product, and that's what they're trying to do. And this gives them the opportunity, under the guise of going green, under the guise of saving the planet and making Greta Thunberg happy, so she won't shriek at old men at the United Nations. They are willing to jack up rates for consumers, and the more money they make, the more money they make.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. I mean, this is a business decision. It used to be that these people were, and this is part of the state's problems, it used to be that these public utility commissions held sway over these guys and said, no, you're not going to just build whatever you want and charge it to the consumer and make 15% back or 10% or whatever we guarantee you. Nowadays, they use the excuse of the green movement to hide behind it and pad their pockets.
Absolutely.
That's what's going on.
Absolutely. I absolutely from the get-go have been damning the wind and solar projects around our country. We have a caller with a quick question and comment. Go ahead, please. You're on the air, caller, please.
Well, if you think about them building these turbines out in the ocean and what it takes to put in a foundation out there, I'm going to tell you, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. And the fact that it's environmentally unfriendly, there's no way that they're doing this in an environmentally acceptable way. Did they do an environmental impact statement on it? How long did it take for that one to clear? Because 10, 15 years is a pretty long, is normal time it takes for environmental impact statements, depending. I mean, I bet you they cleared those out there just like that. I bet they were done in 6 months because it's all environmental horse, you know what. And so the thing of it is that, and then they don't pay for themselves. They're breaking down. They're not worth fixing. $55 a kilowatt hour. You see, we subsidize them. The amount of crap that is going on is insane. They're closing coal-fired power plants out here in the West, and the governor of Wyoming wants to ship the coal to China through a Mexican port because he can't run it down the Columbia River to Portland Port because of the environmentalists. I'll hang up.
Respond to the caller, please, if you would, Dan.
Well, your caller's absolutely right. I mean, the fact of the matter is these are gargantuan. These are Gulliver-like monster Paul Bunyan-sized things that take huge amounts of cement, steel, and aluminum, and you name it. All kinds of oil-based products, resins and things like that in order to make. Not to mention the fact that, these particular units they're talking about are made in France by GE, but in a GE plant in France. And I'm talking about the 12-megawatt things. And so the Frenchmen are more than happy to send that stuff over here while they run on 80% nuclear.
Yeah.
They made that decision a long time ago.
That's true.
Back when they decided to get off oil.
I'm almost out of time, but I'm going to take this call because I wanted to address one other aspect of this wind stupidity. But caller, quickly, and keep your comments short, please. I'm almost out of time. Go ahead.
Okay. I watched them when they were building these giant things out here on the buttes west of Burley. And I talked to one of the people who were in charge of that, and they said it takes 75 yards of concrete to put in a base there. Can you imagine how many yards of concrete it would take to put it on an ocean that's 600 feet deep?
I'll have Dan Kish respond to that.
After these candles, as you refer to, are obsolete, look at the danger of a ship running into that massive thing.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, caller. And Dan, respond to the caller, please.
Yeah, the caller's absolutely right. The amount of cement it's going to take is enormous. I mean, it's great for construction and everything else, but it's also great for window glass makers if everybody ran around breaking windows, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Would society be better if we broke all our windows just to replace them to help out the glass makers? And that's kind of what's going on here. And the fact that these glass makers happen to be in France doesn't do me any good. But yeah, I mean, these are, again, gargantuan monstrosities, and we'll see. We'll see. But I'll tell you, these people out here, out east, are nuts.
Let me just ask you this question, Dan. I'm down to the last 2 minutes, so help me on my time frame. But why isn't the Audubon Society, why aren't environmental groups outraged over these cancer sticks on the land and now in the water, these wind turbines, because of the up to almost 1 million birds a year and over thousands and thousands of eagles killed because of the blades on these wind turbines? Why aren't they outraged?
Yeah, well, because it's all part of the game, Zeb. I mean, come on. We know how a lot of these groups work. They care less about the environment than, and this we saw this with the Green New Deal and AOC's chief of staff, who said that we didn't think this was about climate change. We thought it was about reorganizing the economy. There's a lot more going on behind the scenes on this, and they're looking the other way. And, it's the cost of doing business to make energy harder to produce and more expensive in the United States, because that'll slow down the economy. And they are all about slow growth, no growth, zero population growth.
Absolutely. Dan, I'm going to take one more call. Caller, real fast, 10 seconds. Go ahead.
Why does nobody ever mention about the suppressed technology like the Tesla's work that the FBI's been sitting on for almost 100 years?
I'll have Dan answer that quickly on the air. Did you get the caller's question, please?
Yes, it had to do with
Tesla.
Tesla's original work with electricity, and to be perfectly honest with you, Zeb, I'm going to have to call I don't know on that one, because I've read some things about it, but don't really know if there's anything to it. Hopefully we'd get to it.
Now, one final thought here, Dan, as you come on here every week, I feel, this is my opinion, you tell me if I'm all wet, but I feel like we, the people, the first 3 words of our Constitution, we've lost control. We've lost the ability to be heard. We've lost the ability to slam our fists down on the table and say no, or heck no, and we've got these bureaucrats that are going to stick these cancer sticks up on the ground, these wind turbines. They're going to put up all these solar panels, and we're just going to have to grin and bear it and accept it. I don't want to, and I don't know how to fight back.
Well, the way you fight back is your politicians. The bureaucrats work ultimately for the politicians. They work for the taxpayers, but they don't think they do. But the one people that can rein them in is the politicians. The politicians have to be held to account if they're getting squishy on you, if they're sounding, like they're going south on this because whatever reason. The point is, you got to hold their feet to the fire. Tell them, I like my gas range just the way it is. I like my propane. I like my diesel. I like my gas. Stay out of my life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, don't stay out of our life. Dan Kish with the American Energy Alliance. You're welcome back here every Tuesday. God bless you, man. Thank you so much.
God bless you, Zeb. Thank you, sir.
All right, take care. You know, every week we're going to go into more of the idiocy, and that's what it is. Come on, don't try to cover it up. Idaho Power in there. Oh, we're going to go green, pat ourselves on the back, and yet the ratepayers, you and I and everybody else, are going to be paying the bill, exorbitant bills for absolutely unreliable energy. Idaho Power will not come on this program to discuss it. They'd rather cower and be cowardly under their desks. I want to remind you, too, about Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation. I was over there yesterday, and Nick Greenwell and all the physical therapists, you ought to just go there and watch what's going on. Observe. If you have a problem with aching and paining, or maybe, you're recouping from a surgery or an accident, and you want more information, just go there and observe. These people are so wonderful, knowing all the exercises, knowing everything that will help benefit and get you back to being you. Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley. The number to call and make an appointment. I urge you, they're the best at what they do. 678-1191. That number again, 678-1191. Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation. Call them today. Also, real quick, oh my goodness sakes, there are some big deals happening at Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More. Holy moly, they're having a great big fall clearance. Now, in my hot little hand, I have a great big flyer that says fall clearance at Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More. No money down, no interest for 12 months on approved credit. Oh my goodness, they're having 40% off on the window coverings, the patterned roller shades, double cell honeycomb shades, wood horizontal shades, all the shutters, 40% off. And they're having a mattress closeout up to 60% off. What are you waiting for? Warm up the car, Ethel. Everybody's heading to Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland in Burley for a great big fall clearance. You stop in and see those good folks today. And they are good folks. Really, really nice to work with. Some other people that I want to remind you that are really nice to work with, too, and that's Let's Ride. Now, look outside, sunshine, a few clouds coming in, but boy, this weekend sounds like it's going to be a great weekend to enjoy the fall colors, get up in the mountains, and I urge you to check out all the side-by-sides and the four-wheelers over at Let's Ride. This is where the fun is sold, absolutely, at 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the World. Number to call, 436-4771. They're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 6, Saturdays 9 to 4, and they've got all the new 2020 models coming in. You can save money on the 2019s. They've got a great accessory department, super service department at Let's Ride. Stop in, because this is where the fun is sold. Right now, let's go to the phone line, and we have a lady on the phone this morning that is the president of the Hosea Initiative. I can't wait to talk to this lovely lady. Good morning, Terry Beatley. How are you?
Hey, good morning, and glad to be on your show.
Terry, let me ask you this. Where am I talking to you? Where are you located right now?
Well, technically, right at the moment, I'm in Washington, D.C., but I am based in Virginia.
Really? Well, give us a little background. You've got a book that's out, and it's called What If We've Been Wrong? I need to have a lot more information. I think you and I are definitely on the same page, but explain the book and explain why you're going to be on my program this morning.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity. I want to encourage people, they can find the book if they go to abortionking.com. That's abortionking.com. We have an e-book as well as audiobook. Back in November 2009, I was at a prayer vigil at my church, and this is after years of researching the history of Planned Parenthood and, their racist population control plan and all this. And I was asking the Lord, what was I supposed to do with all this research? And then some of the experiences I had, quite frankly, I'm a white lady, and I was taking the information about Margaret Sanger's Negro Project, which is Planned Parenthood's very racist population control plan, into the black church in Virginia, and the response was overwhelming. People so encouraged me to keep doing what I was doing. So then 5 months later, I'm at this prayer vigil asking the Lord, what was I supposed to do? And all I could hear was go interview Dr. Bernard Nathanson. And as you may know, Dr. Nathanson was the doctor who back in the late 60s, early 70s, he was the medical face of the abortion movement to get abortion decriminalized. He co-founded NARAL Pro-Choice America, and he trained Planned Parenthood on how to slaughter babies in the womb. And the Lord was telling me to go interview this man because he had an amazing 180-degree turn, and that was the beginning.
I can't even imagine what it was like, and I interview people from all walks of life. I interview judges, I interview lawyers, I interview politicians, I interview everyone, athletes on this program. But to sit down and interview this Dr. Nathanson, knowing that he was a huge promoter of taking human lives, that had to be done with a lot of trepidation on your part.
Well, you explain it, you describe it quite accurately. You know, I only went up to New York. He lived in Manhattan, New York. When I interviewed him, he was 83 years old, terminally ill with cancer, and deeply, deeply regretting what he had done to America. He regretted how he had lied to our country, that abortion is women's health care. He regretted fast-tracking Margaret Sanger's racist population control plan that she called the Negro Project. He deeply, deeply regretted setting up an organization, NARAL, which has eviscerated parental rights legislatively. And then, and he deeply regretted, helping to really mastermind and then execute the most brilliant political strategy of all time, using his quote, called the Catholic strategy, which was a very manipulative, stealthy political ploy to convince enough Catholics that they could vote for pro-abortion candidates and not think twice about it. And because of all those things, this man, again, 83, terminally ill with cancer, he deeply regretted. And so what happened to him, just so you know, he celebrated Roe v. Wade in January 1973, and he left the big abortion mill that he was the manager of, where under his term 75,000 babies lost their lives. 75,000 children were killed under his management. Dr. Nathanson celebrated Roe v. Wade, and then what happened to him is about 6 months after Roe v. Wade decision, he became the chief of obstetrics at St. Luke's Hospital in New York City, and the hospital rolled in a brand new technology called real-time ultrasound. And so when I sat with him, I thought he had never seen a baby on ultrasound. He said, no. He said, I had seen the still, grainy photograph pictures, but he had never seen real-time ultrasound, because that was a brand new invention. And as soon as he saw that baby yawning, smiling, wiggling her toes, doing all those human things that we all do, Dr. Nathanson began to bond with the baby in the womb. And a short time thereafter, he began a pro-life journey. And so by 1979, the father of America's industry of abortion, who trained Planned Parenthood and founded the first political pro-abortion organization, had become 100% unequivocally pro-life, making it as widely known as possible that there is no reason why any woman would ever have to have an abortion. And you can read all about it in my book called What If We've Done Wrong? That title actually comes from his never-seen-before resignation letter to NARAL, Pro-Choice America. He actually poses the question, and what if we've been wrong? What an irrevocable, irretrievable mistake we will have made. and he could no longer afford the $10 dues, the annual dues of $10, plus the hubris, the arrogance of certainty.
I'm sitting here, and I can't imagine, I don't want to beleaguer this fact in our interview, but when you were talking to Dr. Nathanson and interviewing him, and you said he was ridden with cancer and knew all the absolute heinous crimes that he had committed against mankind, this must have been a cross so hard to bear. Did he know the Lord? Had he turned into being a Christian? Did he know that he could ask for forgiveness and get forgiveness? I mean, what was the status there?
Yeah, it was, I've been a Christian a long time, and when I met him, but I will tell you that he set, I think, the best example, at least for my life, of seeing somebody fully understand what it means to carry your cross, which is exactly what Jesus told us to do. Bear your cross, carry your cross. And so it's not like, he became a Christian on December 8th, 1996. He knew God had forgiven him, but I don't believe he ever forgave himself, because you gotta admit, just because he became pro-life, 100% pro-life, that didn't end the abortion industry. It kept growing and growing. So Planned Parenthood, which he trained, their doctors, he watched Planned Parenthood grow into this huge behemoth, baby-killing, worldwide, global empire. That's a pretty sad thing. And, because he begged Planned Parenthood to join with NARAL in doing abortions, because at that point, as late as 1965, Planned Parenthood, they even put this in writing, that warning women not to have abortions because abortion kills an existing human being, and abortion may make you sterile, so you can't have a baby when you want one.
Let me jump.
Begged Planned Parenthood to get into the abortion movement. Mm-hmm. And Planned Parenthood refused, but when they saw all the money they were leaving on the table in New York City, who did they call to get trained? But Dr. Bernard Nathanson. So for about, I think it's 2 years, he trained Planned Parenthood while they took copious notes on how to slaughter children in the womb and then run these facilities as women's health care facilities. So I felt such remorse for Dr. Nathanson at the end of the interview. I said, Dr. Nathanson, if you have a message for America, if you tell me what it is, I promise you I will deliver it across our country until it becomes common knowledge or until Roe v. Wade is overturned. And I didn't know what he would say. I didn't know if he'd say his day is done or just what, but he said yes. He said continue teaching the strategy. It's an 8-point strategy of propaganda that he and NARAL used to deceive America, duping our nation. And then he said to tell America that the co-founder of NARAL says to love one another. Abortion's not love. Stop the killing. The world needs more love, and that he was all about love now. And I shook his hand, and I promised him that I would get the job done. And all I can tell you is probably take a second interview. God has had my back the entire time. He has pushed us forward. God is not done with Bernard Nathanson's legacy, and Dr. Nathanson's legacy holds the keys to, I believe, turning the heart of man so that we can get more and more, just Christians, get down on our knees and repent for our apathy and our ignorance.
Let me ask.
God will heal our land, and we turn from our wicked ways, and we heal our land. And it's wicked in this day and time to be apathetic about abortion.
Absolutely.
We know what it does. We've seen it. And then it's just a shame to be ignorant about it. It's almost willful ignorance. And I believe Dr. Nathanson's legacy will turn the heart of man if the average, just Christians, just people who claim Christ as their Savior, it'll turn the heart of man, help American Christians get down on their knees, repent, so that come November 2020, we will show God in the voting booth, we vote for a pro-life America. Only God will know how many hearts have turned.
You know, you just kind of touched on the question I was going to ask you, and I don't know if you want to stay away from politics. On this program, I steer into politics. I'm not ashamed, or I'm not going to be circling the... Well, I'm not going to circle the wagons for anybody. I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to say this, and I think you'll agree with me, that when I look at the platform, if you will, of the Democratic Party and the statements that have been made by some of the potential nominees for president of the Democratic Party and the absolute disdain for human life, and many are advocating that they would support full-term abortion, etc., that's basically infanticide. It all is, as far as I'm concerned. I will never support a party or any politician that adheres to this kind of violence against humanity. What are your thoughts?
Dittos, and more dittos. Yeah, you know, it's as opposed to getting wrapped up into political party, I think it's imperative that we understand what the political party platforms say. And in fact, I'll take it so far that if you have not read through the Democrat Party platform and the Republican Party platform, can you please not vote? Because that's just an ignorant voter. The political party platforms will nearly dictate which direction our country will go in, and this is why. And the reason why is because the vast majority of politicians, once they win their election, they will vote for bills that advance their political party platform. It's the best indicator of what's going to happen to our country, the direction our country is going to go. And never in the history of the United States have the two political parties been so diametrically opposed. So if, on average, I think it's 81 or 83% of the time, politicians will vote for bills in favor of their political party platform direction, it's the best thing to know. So whether it's human life or marriage or how we want to treat Israel, just learn the party platform. And so, I can't tell, as president of Hosea Initiative, we're a 501c3 educational nonprofit. We educate. We teach American history. But I have no problem, teaching Civics 101. Become an educated voter, and by all means, for God's sake, vote pro-life. Now, if one political party chooses to not give an option, let's face it, both parties at least used to pretend to be pro-life. And it's not quite that, it's not that way anymore. That's not our fault. And nor does it risk my 501c3 status to tell people we must show God that we want a pro-life culture. We must show God we vote for a pro-life America. If not, God's going to give us exactly what we ask for.
Absolutely.
A culture of death.
Absolutely.
We haven't already had enough of that.
Absolutely. Terry, final thought here before we talk a little bit about the book. I've only got a couple of minutes left, but I've got to ask you this question, and I think I'm right on this as I go all around the United States, and whether it's Minnesota, whether it's Florida, whether it's Texas, whether it's Washington, there is a naivete in this, the people of the United States. They seem to be naive or not caring about really what the truth is in the world today, and I lump Planned Parenthood into that truth that they don't understand. How are we going to educate them when the media itself is absolutely hand in hand with Planned Parenthood?
Yeah, you have to bypass the media, and I've written a whole book about what happens when you love people with the truth. I actually had a PAC, and after the defeat of Virginia's most pro-abortion, anti-parental rights state senator, the name of the PAC was No Excuse Ministry after Romans 1:21, okay? It was the education that really won the day. So I closed the PAC, and that's when I started up Hosea Initiative after Hosea 4:6. My people perish for lack of knowledge, but the Apostle Paul says, have nothing to do with the evil deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. So that's what we do at Hosea Initiative. I teach American history. We have, particularly for the Christian market, we have Christian conferences, workshops and parish missions. We have, all they've got to do is email us at info@hoseaforyou.org, and we will send them a little bifold that explains what do these conferences look like. We have educational material called fact-check booklets. There are 200 in a case. We literally measured up in Levi's jeans pocket. So we took Dr. Nathanson's 8-point strategy and we drilled it down. So my hope is this. I will find the billionaires, or the multimillionaires who can get our fact-check booklets printed by the hundreds of, actually, quite frankly, the millions, and then we will get these distributed, particularly into some very important areas in the United States to get the people educated. We will bypass social media and the media in general the old-fashioned way by literally loving people with the truth. From my hand into your hand, you will learn why voting pro-life is so absolutely important. And we have the favor of the Lord. The Lord has moved this forward. We will have a feature film coming out, God willing, if I can find the investors behind it. It's being written right now. The true conversion story of America's abortion king to becoming a child of God. And we want that movie to come out, let's say, August of 2020.
All right. Real quick. Now, caller, I'm going to caution you. I can't give you any more than 10 seconds. Keep your remarks short and succinct. Go quickly on the air.
Well, you live in Virginia, which is flipping. You go to D.C. all the time. How evil is Washington, D.C.? Because we think that you guys it's lost. I'll hang up.
Respond to the caller quickly, Terry, please.
Well, the phone kept going in and out. What did he say?
He just said, you live back in that area of Virginia, Washington, D.C., etc. And he said, basically, how evil is that area in the United States?
How evil?
Yes.
Evil?
Yes, evil, like with the politicians adhering to this kind of thought about abortion, etc.
There's plenty of evil out there. I don't quite know how to measure evil, but what I can say is this. If you think just voting pro-life is we have to do that, right? But we must get out and educate people who have never been reached out to.
Absolutely.
And I've written a whole book about it. What happens when you do? And it crosses the racial divide, the political divide, and you crush the enemy, because God says to love other people, and that means, he says, love the Lord your God with your heart, your mind, your soul. Well, you in general, you're not loving the Lord with your mind. If you are politically ignorant, if you don't understand in this day and time that abortion, rips a baby to shreds. So we're all about educating God says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. So give them the knowledge, and they will, many and most will do the right thing.
I've got to run, Terry. I'm way over time right now. I've got the clock ready to beat me over the head. Terry Beatley, the author of What If We've Been Wrong. Where can people find this book? Real fast, Terry, real fast.
Get that book at abortionking.com. Order it today. We want thousands sold. abortionking.com.
Terry, thank you so much for being on the program. Please come back in the future. We'd look forward to it.
Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you very much. Whoa, a wonderful lady, and I really appreciate her comment and her message this morning. And the book is called What If We've Been Wrong, written by Terry Beatley. Thank you very much. Weather forecast. Wow, I'm running short on minutes here in this hour. Weather brought to you by Phillips Oaks Goodwin Crane and Company, and they've been providing accounting services to the Minicash area for well over 50 years. These people are good. These people are professional. These people know how to help you, your family, and your business with the best of tax return preparation, tax planning, financial statement preparation, retirement planning, and the list goes on and on and on. They are good with offices in Burley and Rupert. Phillips Oaks Goodwin Crane and Company. And right now, here's Gina with the weather.
Might want to batten down the hatches for today because the wind is going to be picking up tonight. Here's a look at your weather forecast. We are expecting mostly sunny skies for most of the day today, high of 68 by this afternoon. Winds are going to be picking up out of the south and could gust as high as about 40 miles an hour. Tonight we do have a 20% chance of showers, partly cloudy skies, still going to be breezy, expecting a low of 34. Tomorrow that wind is going to continue, partly sunny skies, high of 38, winds out of the west at about 35 miles an hour, gusts as high as 50 miles an hour for tomorrow. Tomorrow night, 20% chance of showers before midnight, mostly cloudy skies, expecting a low of 20. Winds are going to be calming down for Thursday, sunny skies, high of 40 with an overnight low of 20. Then by Friday, mostly sunny skies and a high of 50. That's a look at your weather forecast for Zebedee Ranch.
Gina, thank you very much, and brought to you this hour by Phillips Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company. And believe me, they can help people starting a business, a partnership, a corporation, or maybe expanding their business, hiring more employees. Questions? Ask them. They're the professionals. Phillips Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company, with offices in Burley and Rupert. Also, quickly, I want to remind you again, I'm running late. Don't forget the iComfort Wi-Fi thermostat from Lennox, featuring remote control access so you can adjust your home's temperature from anywhere. Find out more about it. Ramsey Heating and Electric, along with Lennox, are offering up to $1,600 in rebates on a brand new home comfort system. Check it out today. Call Ramsey Heating and Electric at 678-0459 or on the line, ramseysonline.com. And real quick, also, some friends of ours over in the Rupert area. They are the best with life insurance for you and your protection. Health insurance, retirement planning, employee benefits, all of this through Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. Now, the number, easy. Write it down, call them, let them help you. They're very dedicated and responsive to your needs. 436-4424. That number again, 436-4424. Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. You get a hold of them today. Coming up next hour, Dr. History, a stand-in for Dr. History today. We're going to be talking to the man that wrote the book about the Little Bighorn Battle, and that's Lance Dorrell back in Missouri. And then at 10:32, Phil Kerpen. Got to run the news next from CBS. Wheels, take it away. Oh, wheels, wheels, wheels. Boost up the sound in my headset just a little bit, if you would. Zebedee Ranch, brought to you by our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations serving you with a big, really big fall tire sale going on right now. Stop in and see them today. And, of course, Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue in Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. Really good folks, along with Greystone Crossing Independent Senior Living. As a matter of fact, I'm going to talk about them right now. And if you're a caregiver for a senior and you need to be out of town for a few days or even a few weeks, I urge you to call Matt and Kelly Wiggins, and they will welcome your loved one to their home environment. And it is a home environment. I've been there. I've looked at this wonderful, brand new, beautiful place, Greystone Crossing, and they offer 3 meals a day, along with snacks and housekeeping and local transportation. Wow, this is great for your senior or seniors. Please, this is where you can live the good life with your friends at 1221 21st Street in Heyburn, Greystone Crossing, Independent Senior Living. Don't forget that. A couple of weeks ago, on this program, we had an author that filled in for Dr. History. And I was so impressed with his book called A Dance with Death. And I absolutely wanted to get him back on the program again and talk about it. It's the Battle of the Little Bighorn with General Custer and Captain Miles Keogh, etc. And I say good morning again to Lance Dorrell, the author of this great book. Lance, good morning. How are you? Wheels, is Lance Dorrell there? Please turn him up.
Yes, sir, he is.
Get him on the air, please. Good morning, Lance. How are you?
Hey,
Zeb, good to hear from you. I'm great, my friend. How are you?
I am wonderful. I don't know if you heard the opening remarks of this segment or what, but evidently the switches weren't turned on. Your book called A Dance with Death is absolutely an outstanding book. And I guess what I wanted to do by inviting you back on the program this morning is talk a little bit about the structure of the book. And then at the end of the interview, we'll find out where people can obtain copies. But when you were creating the narrative for this book, you had to combine a lot of fact, historical fact, and then the fiction to create the narrative. That, to me, would be extremely difficult. Explain how you did that.
Well, Zeb, years ago when I got into it, some of the things you just mentioned, it was difficult. And then I realized doing the research, I needed to do more research in depth. And so, consequently, that opened some doors for me to go to spend more time at the battlefield. And then I was able to meet several individuals who are from the Northern Cheyenne tribe, who the Native Americans who fought the 7th Cavalry at the Little Bighorn. And so by doing research with those great, incredible folks, they were able to give me more of the Native American narrative, and that helped me, okay? And so not only did I have the soldiers' accounts, but now I had the Native Americans. And so trying to fit those two things together was a challenge, but it was a labor of love. And then doing the dialogue, putting the dialogue in, what these guys may have been talking about, and the things that we know that they did discuss, then that came a little bit easier for me.
I sat there, and after I went through the book and I highlighted quite a few of the different circumstances and happenings, when you were talking to these various Indian tribes and families, and I understand that most all of the American Indians did not write anything down or keep track of any historic value, how close to reality do you think their stories were that were passed down from generation to generation so that you could get somewhat adequate and reliable information?
Zeb, if you study any part of the Native American culture, whether it be on the East Coast, the Plains Indians, or the West, one thing always jumps out at you when you read. The Native Americans taught the youngsters the oral stories, especially about the famous warriors. And so they would test their children on these stories. They would tell the stories at night, and then they would test them to tell them those stories over and over and over. But think about it in this context, okay? We know that the Plains Indians traveled from, especially the Cheyenne. Let's take the Cheyenne, for instance, Zeb. When they came across, and they're in North and South Dakota, Wyoming, Colorado, down even into western Kansas, okay, and Nebraska. They would travel back and forth, the North and the Southern Cheyennes, before they split. Zeb, they did this all the time, and they did it by memory, right? So so what I'm trying to get to is these oral stories that were passed down, they're spot on, and they've always been there. They were very reticent to keep them quiet, especially about the battle, because they feared retaliation, especially the Northern Cheyennes, okay? So they always had the stories. They gave us bits and pieces. We just didn't always put them together because we didn't understand what they were saying. We were too ingrained to only go by the maps by the soldiers who survived or the accounts from other white people. So we didn't always know what they were telling us.
Boy, I tell you, now, you as an author, and this is where I give you a lot of kudos, to take the different circumstances of this battle that has been known as one of the primary battles between the white men in the West and, of course, the Indians, the Custer's Last Stand, to weave all of this together into a verbiage between whether it's a captain or whether it's a lieutenant or whether it's a private or whether it's like in your book it mentions one of the soldiers sobbing on his knees knowing that it's the end. You did a fantastic job of turning this into story form. How long did it take you?
Well, thank you for the kind words, first of all. So it took me 5 years to feel that I was comfortable enough with all those things you just mentioned, and knowing everything I could about the battle from Myos Keogh's perspective and what he and Comanche would have encountered, what we know from the surviving soldiers, and then, of course, knowing what I knew then from the Native Americans, namely the Northern Cheyenne, a few Sioux, and the Crow that live close. So, yeah, 5 years, Zeb.
Wow.
Long years.
Okay, now, Lance, when you were doing the study for this, what did you learn? I think I might have asked you this the last time you were on the program. And to my engineer Wheels, I want you to turn Mr. Durrell up louder than what he is. What did you learn about the attack that you didn't know before, maybe with our history books not elaborating on it? What did you learn that might have come as a surprise?
Okay, so great question. When the 7th Cavalry spots this huge village, they are George Custer is told by his Native American Crow Scouts, we need to go attack now, they're going to scatter. If you read some of the verbiage from the surviving officers who were with Custer when they saw the village, it looks like, when you look at it, that he wasn't quite sure the village is out there. So he proceeds with this attack, right? And he divides his forces up into really 4 components, as we talked about. He's got 200 or so men. Marcus Reno's going down the valley with 125 men to start the attack on the southern end. And he sends Captain Frederick Fentine on a scout to the west to make sure there's no satellite villages out there so they're not surprised, okay? And so he's also got his ammunition train, right? So he has another 100 or so men way back in the back to the south bringing up the ammunition. And so when people ask about, what the attack and Custer hitting this village, what he's doing, Zeb, he's doing the anvil attack. And so that's something that people don't always understand what he's doing. He's trying to hit it from the south, and then as he goes along with his 200 or some men above the bluffs, okay, he's trying to find a place to cross so he can hit it from 2 different areas, right? So that's some of the stuff that you learn as you go into this. Okay, that's common sense. That's a standard operating procedure on attacking a Plains Indian village. The next thing that I've learned as I go through this over the years that people don't always understand is, why is he doing that? Why is he going to hit it from 2 sides, right? Well, Zeb, in Custer's previous attacks on the village at the Washita in the Indian Territory, you try to capture the non-combatants, the women and the children, right? You get some women and children captives, as he did. That will pull the warriors back and hopefully get them to surrender. That is what we believe he was doing, is trying to get around this massive village so he can find a place not only to hit the village from another side, but to capture the women and children, the non-combatants, and bring the warriors to a halt from fighting him.
I see. Lance, one question that has always stood out in my mind, and I need you with your expertise and your research to explain this to me. Did the Indian Scouts, or any of the scouts for the Army, did they or did they not do their job? I mean, how do you not know that thousands of Indian warriors are about ready to take you apart at the Battle of Little Bighorn? How could they miss that?
Again, that's an interesting question. So, Zeb, as they're following the trail, and they've gone into the Montana territory, okay, they come across several lodgepole trails in the Traviosos, okay? And Custer is so intent, okay, to not let these Indians scatter on him, that he doesn't always grasp the Arikaras who are with him, those scouts, who are trying to tell him that these people aren't leaving these camps, right, that they're following. They're more and more are coming. And I'm not sure he always grasped that, Zeb. So in either that or he did, and he just didn't care, and he was going to bring this massive camp of individuals. Again, the number probably goes anywhere from 5,000 to 7,000 people, not this gigantic number of 10,000, but 5,000 to 7,000 people, a pony herd of maybe 20,000 horses, right? And think of about anywhere from 1,200 to 1,700 warriors. His only concern, Zeb, and the Army's concern, is that they're going to scatter on him, okay? So that's his only concern. So the scouts did their job. He may have not always been listening at certain times.
I think you said that very kindly, because some of the reports that I've read about General George Armstrong Custer, he was very arrogant, very ego-centered, and quite frankly, was not a graduate at the top of his class. As a matter of fact, he barely made it through. And was it his arrogance that literally wiped out the 7th Cavalry?
You know, that's an encompassing question, and there's so many things that happened that day, Zeb, that just didn't go his way. And unfortunately, in the scheme of war, when that happens, men die, okay? And on that day, besides all these things we've talked about, Zeb, and this village, this camp of people, 7,000 people, they'd already fought Crook's troops 8 days before, June 17th, down in on the Battle of the Rosebud, okay? They knew the soldiers were there. They'd been warned. They were still out in that area, but he still surprised that village, Zeb, on that day, okay? And think of it like this. He has them on the run, Zeb, and he just couldn't get around them, and he couldn't get into the village, okay? We believe that he tried to hit the village at an area called Medicine Tail Coulee. Whether he was stopped by a bigger resistance than we really know, we don't really know, or if he thought he couldn't get across there, and he continued to go on around this massive village, right? And then when he gets too close to these women and children, he stopped. But along the way, he encounters warriors who are in their element. They're fighting as guerrilla fighters, right? They're using this terrain to their advantage. And if you've ever been to the Little Bighorn, the battlefield, it's very provocative, it's very moving, but the terrain is lethal to a cavalryman.
Right.
You can't get prolonged charges, okay?
Right.
Gullies, ravines, areas for these warriors to dismount, hide, and shoot arrows and lob these arrows. So as Custer continues to try to get around this village, Zeb, he has to leave his forces to unite with Reno and Benteen, who he thinks will come on his trail, right? And he has to worry about the ammunition, okay? And so, consequently, he drops troops off as he continues on around to try to find this village, to find a crossing, and he realizes he doesn't have enough men. And when he goes back to pick up his forces, he realizes that the end is already in sight as the warriors have closed in all around his troops, and he's in a fight for his life.
Let me ask you this, Lance. In your research of this book, and I'm just fascinated with the way you wrote this book, was there a point in time that maybe the other leaders, whether it was Benteen, whether it was Keogh himself, or anyone else, was there ever a point before the finalization of the battle that maybe the other leadership could have said something or done something or prevented Custer from this idiocy that was about ready to happen to them?
You know, unfortunately, we'll never be able to know that because a lot of those guys that were closest to him did die at the Little Bighorn. So, you know, we don't know they're part of it. We know that Reno and Benteen had their misgivings. However, of course, once all is said and done, Zeb, and the battle's played out, the tragedy is now amongst them, there was some investigations. There was actually a court of inquiry for Reno to clear his name by 79, okay, 3 years after the battle. And, you know, there was a lot of testimony that probably could have been brought out by the survivors, officers, that is, that showed their apprehensions and that maybe they didn't go to Custer's aid when they could have, as quickly as they could have. Okay? So that tells me that they did have a lot of misgivings. They didn't like Custer. As we talked before, there was groups that were pro-Custer. There were groups that were against Custer. So there's a lot of that. So did they voice some apprehension about dividing the group up? Yes, they did. But again, Zeb, that's the farthest thing of what ends up happening was in their mind. They knew they were going to be in for a fight. They knew they were encountering Sioux and Cheyenne, hostile warriors. Okay, but again, they never expected those people to stand and fight like they did that day.
Yeah.
And that's some of the story as well. The Native American resistance, they were fighting for their homes, their way of life, and of course for each other and their people.
Absolutely. You know, Lance, when I read the book, and I'm going to reread it, I skimmed through it the first time because I knew that you were coming on the program this morning. But your explanation and your writing of the actual battle is gripping. It's absolutely gripping. And my question to you is, who did you consult? Who did you talk to? Where did you get a lot of the feelings that were portrayed when you wrote about the actual battle and the death of the soldiers? I mean, you really did an outstanding job of explaining that. Where did you base this information on?
You know, just years and years of research, reading anything I could, obviously, about the battle, and then trying to read as much as I could in my spare time about other authors who wrote about books similar to what I was wanting to do. I'll tell you one that jumps out at when I think about what you just asked, Zeb, is Alan LeMay, who wrote The Searchers. Okay? I don't know if you've ever read that.
Yes.
That is a great Western, but very moving dialogue and detail. That jumps out at me. So, you know, imitation's the best form of flattery, right? So you try to read and see what your peers are doing. And then again, my time was spending time with the Native Americans in and around the battlefield, hearing their stories of what their ancestors shared about not only the soldiers who fought there and how scared they were and all the smoke and the dust, the turmoil, but the warriors who were there. Zeb, these guys are scared too, these warriors, okay? They're young men. Many of them were not even married yet, hadn't had time to have families. But they were so ingrained to protect their people, their way of life. These warrior societies, you know, did the warrior societies fight as a unified force? No. But these warriors from these warrior societies, I know through my research that 4 of the Cheyenne warrior societies were in action, and Keogh and Custer didn't run into these guys. Also, there's 10 Sioux warrior societies that were in action, and again, not fighting as unified forces, but fighting as individuals. And so I've done a lot of research in there, visiting with a lot of people at the different reservations from the different bands and tribes, just trying to get that aspect of it and bring that to light.
Let me ask you this, Lance. I've only got 3 minutes left, and keep your answer relatively short, if you would. I got 2 more questions. The next question is, when you were visiting with the various members of the tribes and talking about historical fact and what was passed down to them through generations, did you detect still some animosity against the white man?
Absolutely, all the time. You bet. Especially for coming and attacking women and children just out of the blue instead of trying to negotiate. Yes, absolutely.
And now I want to end this conversation by asking about the sole survivor, and that's the horse Comanche. I don't think we've given this due justice as far as talking about this great horse that was owned and ridden by Miles Keogh. Go ahead, wrap it up with just a quick minute dissertation on Comanche.
Sure. So Comanche is, he and Keogh's relationship in the book is a special bond. Keogh had found him when he was, before he goes to the Dakota Territory. The horse and he had been through several scrapes together. You know, Zeb, these guys, the horse is all they had. A lot of them had no families, okay? So the horse is it to these guys. And Comanche fought his butt off. He had 7 wounds when he was found at the battlefield. He probably, in all likelihood, may have been put out of his misery, but because he was Captain Miles Keogh's horse, he was nursed and brought back to health. Fast forward, Zeb, from 76 to 1890, Comanche is made really a hero of the regiment, given special treatment, kind of wanders the post at Old Fort Lincoln, never to be ridden again, okay? Goes on parade and all these things. Zeb, this is a true story on this last part of this. Miles Keogh had an orderly at the Little Bighorn. His name was Gustav Korn from Europe. Korn survived the battle. He took care of Comanche later in life. And when Korn would go into town to Bismarck to have a night on the town and maybe visit some of the ladies of the night, if he didn't come back to the base, Comanche would wander out of Fort Lincoln and stand outside the brothel and wait for Korn to come out, okay? And then the last part of that is Gustav Korn, Zeb, was killed at Wounded Knee, 1890, December, right? Comanche goes, when Korn doesn't come back, Comanche's health fails, and he soon passes. And the story is, the old-timers say that Comanche died of a second broken heart. And I think that tells you enough about that great horse.
I'll tell you what, for a man that's been in the horse business all of his life, that just gave me a cold shiver. You know, Lance, you've been on once before and now today, but I can guarantee you're going to come back in the future. I'm talking to Lance J. Dorrell. Is it Dorrell or Dorrell? I want to make sure I pronounce it correctly.
I appreciate that. It's Doral.
All right. And the book is called A Dance with Death, all about the battle at the Little Bighorn and the principles like Captain Miles Keogh, etc. It's an outstanding book. And where can people get it? Real quick, I'm out of time.
They're at Amazon.com under Lance J. Doral. We've lowered the price. We wanted to give it a promotion, so you can get an ebook for a whopping $2.99. And the paperback is $10.99 as well. Thank you, Zeb.
No, thank you. God bless you for an excellent job, and please come back in the future, Lance. We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
I would love it. Thank you, Zeb.
All right, take care. The book is fascinating, and the way that he has woven the actual facts of history, and then combined that with the speaking and the verbiage and the interaction with the soldiers, etc. It's outstanding, and I really appreciate it. Lance Dorrell, book called A Dance with Death. Real quick, reminding you again, let your house welcome you home with the perfect temperature anytime and all the time. The iComfort Wi-Fi thermostat from Lennox features remote control access so you can adjust your home's temperature from anywhere, any place. Don't forget, get a hold of Ramsey Heating and Electric and Lennox, offering up to $1,600 in rebates on a new home comfort system. Check it out today. Call Ramsey Heating and Electric at 678-0459. Send it over to Wheels. I'll be back in a couple of minutes.
And now, back to Zeb at the Ranch on AM 1230 KBAR. To reach Zeb, call 436-2244 or toll free 1-866-927-4587. And now, here is Zeb Best.
Well, thank you. This morning has just flown by, and we've still got a 30-minute segment left. And before we get started, I want to remind you, too, about Patterson's at 421 East Main in Burley. Good morning, Curtis and Lorena. Really nice people in the staff over at Patterson's, and believe me, they are your electronic needs headquarters. Let me tell you that they have all your electronic needs. The home theater systems, video surveillance cameras, and in this day and age, absolutely a necessity. They've got all the car stereos and speakers, complete sound systems, and when you want to come home after a hard day's work and just put your feet up and say, "Whoa, what's on TV, honey?" Well, they've got the excellent TVs by Samsung, Sony, Toshiba, LG TVs, that is, great selection, and they're open Monday through Saturday, 9 to 6. I urge you to stop in and see them today. Patterson's at 421 East Main in Burley. Number to call, 678-6997. Right now, we're going to go to the phone line, and this gentleman's been on my program many times in the past, as a matter of fact. He is the president of AmericanCommitment.org, and we'd like to welcome him back on the show. Phil Kirpin, how in the dickens are you, sir? Good to have you back.
I am doing great, Zeb. How are you?
Getting older and maybe not in some cases wiser. I'm trying hard, though. I'm really glad that you're on the program this morning, because as we get older and we see over our left shoulder some of the idiocy that's going on in government, especially all the regulations, etc., pharmaceutical products today are absolutely almost out of reach price-wise to keep people healthy. What's going on? And I know you wanted to talk about a subject that I will label drug reimportation. What's going on in the pharmaceutical world?
Well, there are a lot of issues right now. Drugs are obviously much more expensive than we would like them to be. and much more expensive than they are in other rich countries, which I think is fundamentally unfair, and that's something the president has focused on a lot, that we have so much higher prices than other rich countries. And, I will say that even an expensive drug is usually a lot cheaper than a hospitalization or, the alternative if the drug didn't exist or weren't available. And so you do need to keep that in mind kind of for some perspective. But we've got a drug development and pricing system in this country that has a lot of good and has a lot of bad. The good is that we have a tremendous amount of research and development, and we've developed an enormous number of cures and miracle treatments, and we've really accomplished remarkable things. Just in the last several years, hepatitis C was cured, fully cured, which was a pretty big deal. There's an incredible amount of innovation going on, and that's a good thing. The bad thing is the costs have been rising dramatically, and the out-of-pocket in particular, co-pays and deductibles, and people are now facing exposure to very high drug costs on a pretty regular basis at the register, and that can be very challenging, obviously, financially. And so the question, I think, is, how can we get those costs down without undermining the good in our system, which is that so much is spent on R&D and innovation, and we are able to develop so many cures and sort of, carry the, almost all of the medical innovation in the world, the pharmaceutical innovation, almost all the pharmaceutical innovation in the world happens either in the United States or, when it doesn't, with an eye to the U.S. market, because that's where most of the money can be made. And so there is a lot of good. There's also this cost problem, and related to this cost problem is the way sort of the whole industry has organized itself in terms of the pharmaceutical benefit managers now in this country. Almost every pharmacy is part of a purchasing collective now called a PBM, a pharmaceutical benefit manager. The largest one, Optum, is now actually owned by United Health. But there are a couple of others. And basically there are these three very large PBMs, pharmaceutical benefit managers, that have organized almost all of the pharmacies in the country, certainly all of the chain pharmacies. And you might think, great, they've got the purchasing power, they're going to drive down prices and negotiate and make drugs less expensive. And actually, Zeb, the opposite has happened. They actually go to the manufacturers and demand higher prices, not lower prices, because they've developed this business model where they take a percentage of the list price as their compensation, and they pass the list price on to the customer at the point of sale, but then they ask for rebates from the manufacturers, and they actually, even in government programs, they're allowed to do this. They have an exemption from the anti-kickback statute, and so they actually say, hey, we don't want low prices, we want high prices, with a large rebate that we can then divert to our own profits and skim off the top and pass on the high list price to customers. And Optum, the largest PBM, which is owned, as I mentioned, by United Health, they actually told the pharmaceutical manufacturers, you need to give us almost 2 years' notice. They asked for 7 quarters' notice, almost 2 years' notice, for any price decrease. Anytime you want to cut prices, you need to give us 7 quarters notice. But you can raise prices any time. And so we've got this really dysfunctional market where the middlemen who sort of control the purchasing power actually want higher prices rather than lower prices. And so we've got a lot of issues right now.
Wow.
And unfortunately, the Democrats, they think the solution to everything is just have the government totally take it over. And so we've got Nancy Pelosi who introduced a bill that says the government will conduct a so-called negotiation. She says the government will negotiate the prices for drugs. But here's how the negotiation works. The government will tell the manufacturer what the price is, and if the manufacturer says no, they're going to have to pay you 95% tax.
Let me ask you this, Phil. I'm going to interrupt with, some questions on occasion. We have a caller, and I'm going to ask the caller to stay on the line just for a quick second. I'll be right back with you. But your dissertation that you just gave sounds to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the greed, the unfettered greed in this country and the world today supersedes humanity. That's what it sounds like.
Well, I'm a capitalist. I tend to think that greed can be a good thing if you have a functioning marketplace, because it creates an incentive to allocate resources efficiently. So I don't know that I would say that greed per se is the problem, but I do think we have a problem with the market design right now, because the middlemen are able to sort of divert funds to their own bottom line in a way that probably shouldn't be allowed. They have an exemption from the anti-kickback statute, and so it's not a well-functioning market. But I'm generally in favor of profits. I think that a profit motive tends to be the best way to allocate resources, and so I get nervous when people start saying the problem is greed, because usually when people say that, the solution they want is a government takeover.
I agree with that. I agree with that to a certain extent, Phil, but when you're talking about human lives on the line as to whether they can afford the drug or not, there has to be some semblance of humanity that prevails over greed or the lust for a kind of a profit system.
Well, let's think about that, because if we just say, hey, we're not going to allow profit in pharmaceutical drugs, it's too important that people get medicines and cures to be governed by a profit motive. Well, if you do that, you destroy the incentive for private sector research and development.
True.
It's about $200 billion a year.
True.
Maybe you can replace it with something else. Maybe you could come up with some massive increase in the NIH budget and some big tax to pay for it, and maybe you could figure out how to make that as efficient as what the private sector does. But I think that would be a pretty daunting undertaking, and it would almost certainly be less efficient than private companies competing. And so I think that you've got to be careful. We certainly need to have some form of assistance for people who need it. I would definitely agree with that. But I don't know that you want to get rid of the profit motive as an organizing principle completely. I think you probably want to keep that to get the incentive for R&D and innovation.
Well stated. And we have a caller with a comment and a question. Go ahead, caller, please. You're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I was wondering what percentage of pharmaceuticals are now being made in China?
Phil, go ahead. What percentage of pharmaceutical products that we have here are made in China? The caller asked.
I don't know the answer to that. There certainly are, there certainly is pharmaceutical manufacturing in China, and that's been kind of a growth industry there. I don't know the answer to the question about a percentage standpoint. The answer to that, there are. The innovator drugs are typically made in U.S. facilities. There's still a lot of them in places like New Jersey and so forth. But some of the generic makers are big global makers who put their manufacturing in all kinds of different places. And the other issue we have with Chinese pharmaceuticals is they have a lot of counterfeits on the world market and infiltrating supply chains. And a lot of times people think, hey, I can go on the internet and I can get the same drug really cheap, and that might and you might get the real thing. But if you get a counterfeit, you're taking an awful lot of risk.
Absolutely. Now, Phil, I've got a question going back to what your comment was a few minutes ago, and I totally agree with you on the capitalistic attitude on this. But when you were talking about the Democrats and the government control over medications, boy, I all of a sudden got a real chill going down my backbone because, and maybe I'm wrong on this, making it a synopsis like I am, but I'm going to say it anyway. We're looking at a Democratic Party right now that has no respect for life on the left with the abortion issue, and then no respect on the other end of life with the elderly issue, and then you put them in charge of the drug and pharmaceutical issues, and we could really be perpetrating a hemlock society. Am I wrong?
Well, I mean, it's certainly an enormous risk. Anytime you say that the major consequential questions of life and death are going to be made through an essentially politicized mechanism, through a government-run program, you do run this sort of risk of dehumanization, that individuals are not going to be seen as people. They're going to be seen from the perspective of, the cost to society and the cost of these programs. And we do have measures like this already. The value of a life year and that kind of thing is embedded in a lot of the existing government programs, and it's expressed in places like Britain. They have something called NICE, the National Institute for Clinical Excellence. NICE is a heck of a name for what it does, but they decide whether, a treatment is justified based on, how many years of life it will afford to you, whether it's worth it, based on how old you are and how much they think your current quality of life is worth. And that kind of a question, that kind of a calculation being made in a government entity certainly I find chilling. And for anyone who believes in human rights and individual human dignity, the idea that we're transferring so much power, life and death power from individuals to politicians and bureaucrats should be deeply disturbing, I think. But that's the kind of democratic worldview. The socialist worldview is that you don't have individual worth or dignity or even necessarily autonomy, but rather that we're all part of a society that should decide things collectively through a politicized process. They actually value that. They want that. They think that that's a better, more fair, more just way of doing things than having individual rights and individual decision making. And so it's a big values difference, I think.
Phil, what about the I know it's extremely expensive to have a new drug come on the market with all the research, development, and the study. I know multi-millions and millions of dollars, but how long, when a drug is finally approved by the FDA, can other companies come up with a derivative in a generic form to make it more cost-effective for the general public?
Well, drug patents are 20 years, but typically by the time they do all of the lab testing and then do the FDA application, go through all the rounds of FDA approvals and the 3 phases and all of that, typically they get half of that or less, because so much of the patent life was already used up before the drug comes to market. And so that's one of the issues, is we're typically looking at a pretty short window in which the innovator manufacturer can try to make back the drug development costs and the approval costs and so forth. And the average now, Tufts University runs the numbers every few years, the average now is up to $2.6 billion for the average cost of bringing a new drug to market. And so if you've got only 10 years to make that back into return on capital before generic competition comes in and your price collapses, you're going to charge a high price. And so that's kind of the economics of what we have right now. And we've got to get that cost down. That's the main driver. Otherwise, you're just reshuffling the deck chairs, figuring out a different way to spread it around to different payers and so forth. We've got to get those costs down considerably. And and one of the problems we have is that the drug companies, the big drug companies, like it being an expensive, time-consuming process because they're the only ones who can do it. And so when a startup drug company has a great breakthrough and finds a blockbuster drug, most of the time they end up getting the whole company acquired by one of these big guys that knows the process and can do it and can go through it, because the wherewithal that it takes for a small company to actually get something approved is too daunting. And so we've got this problem where you always hear about these fights as big business versus big government, but in this one they're really in bed together. And it's the big guys who want it to be a long, expensive, cumbersome process because it basically keeps everyone else out. And I would like to see us dramatically scale back the requirements for FDA testing. I think they should do safety testing, and that should be all that's required pre-market. I think that the efficacy testing should be allowed if companies want to do it and to be able to get FDA approval for specific uses, but I think that should be done post-market, and that once a drug is proven safe, they should be able to sell it to patients, because a huge percentage of the time now, doctors are prescribing things for so-called off-label uses anyway, which is something that it hasn't been proven effective in FDA trials, but there's so much information sharing that goes on now in the world the way it is, that doctors figure out something works for something unrelated, they start using it for that. So I think the idea that we should wait years and years for all of the phase 2 and phase 3 trials is something that's long outlived its usefulness, and we've got to find a way to make the regulatory process much less time-consuming and much less expensive if we really want to meaningfully bring prices down.
I'll tell you what, every time you want to have straight information on what's happening and really the bottom line, talk to this man, Phil Kerpen, president of AmericanCommitment.org. Phil, every time I have you on the program, I really learn something, and I appreciate it. Thank you, and please come back soon in the future.
Well, that's my pleasure, and it's great to be with you, and you have a good one, Zeb.
All right, sir. Thank you very, very much. Phil Kerpen talking about drugs coming in from other countries and also the high cost of pharmaceutical products. And there's got to be some way to get the costs down and become more effective for the American consumer. Thank you, Phil Kerpen. Boy, weather forecast. Here I am again, running late. I'll tell you what. Our weather brought to you this hour by our friends at Scarrows Meats, 331 North Road, Jerome. Number to call, 324-7657. And if you want to see all the delicious meats at Scarrows Meats, go to their website, scarrowsmeats.com. The list goes on and on. I'll tell you, Don Scarrow and his crew have hit a home run, and I'm very partial to their bratwurst. I love bratwurst, and they've got the best. Check it out today, Scarrows Meats. Give them a call, 324-7657. Right now, here's Gina with the weather.
Might want to batten down the hatches for today because the wind is going to be picking up tonight. Here's a look at your weather forecast. We are expecting mostly sunny skies for most of the day today, high of 68 by this afternoon. Winds are going to be picking up out of the south and could gust as high as about 40 miles an hour. Tonight we do have a 20% chance of showers, partly cloudy skies, still going to be breezy, expecting a low of 34. Tomorrow that wind is going to continue, partly sunny skies, high of 38, winds out of the west at about 35 miles an hour, gusts as high as 50 miles an hour for tomorrow. Tomorrow night, 20% chance of showers before midnight, mostly cloudy skies, expecting a low of 20. Winds are going to be calming down for Thursday, sunny skies, high of 40 with an overnight low of 20. Then by Friday, mostly sunny skies and a high of 50. That's a look at your weather forecast for Zebedee.
Gina, thank you very much. And the weather brought to you again by Scarrows Meats, 331 North Road, Jerome, and the number to call, 324-7657. It's really, really the truth. They are changing the way we eat, one delicious bite at a time. You know, here's a story I wanted to get into in the first hour this morning, and I ran out of time. This is so outrageously stupid that school officials in Seattle, Washington, have come up with a document, and I'm not making this up. You can go to the website and you can find this. This story broke earlier this morning. School officials in Seattle, Washington are saying that math is oppressive and math is racist. Mathematics. School officials. Now, let me be the first to say that of all the courses I took in high school, English and history, I loved history, and of course math, I was never really your Einstein with mathematical figures or numbers, but I have a great respect for mathematics. I have a great respect for the finalization and the computation of mathematics. And for these stupid people, and they are, to say that math represents oppression of the poor and is racist, you have got to stretch the rubber band to the point where it's going to break to show me how that could possibly be true. And then a couple of these school officials that have the combined brain capacity of a bicycle spoke came out and said that who is to say if the answer to 2 plus 2 is 5 is wrong. What? I read this and I just absolutely could not believe that there are idiots in school systems across the United States that are trying to embark on this floating down a completely stupid canal of trying to tell us that math is oppressive and racist and it's not the final line. It's a person's thought that counts more than anything else. What? 2 plus 2 is 4. And these nincompoops that try to change and alter fact should be thrown out of any educational circle. They're damaging to the minds and the health of the minds of people that are in the school systems. But some of these people honestly believe that mathematics is used to disenfranchise people and communities of color. Somebody, please. How in the world can mathematics, cut and dried, right and wrong, how can it be racist and used to oppress the poor? Work on that. We're going to have an oral exam on that question tomorrow morning at 8:06. I want your answers called in, and you will be graded on your effort. Oh, my goodness. Caller, quickly. I've got 1 minute. 1 minute, go. And that was quick. They're backing up. I just am at a loss as to how the left, the radical, not at all smart left, can come up with these absolute stories of idiocy. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, our Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers are having a great big fall tire sale, and you'd better participate because they can save you a lot of money on your tires for your car, pickup, SUV, horse trailer, boat trailer, camp trailer, whatever it might be. Stop in and see them today. They got all the tread designs, all the sizes for you. And along with that, the best in brake service and front-end alignment, shocks and struts, batteries. Oh, like I keep telling you, don't go hunting and get up on that mountain with a battery that's kind of iffy, and then you turn the key and it goes click, 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 click. You be sure and stop in at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, and they will help you. Best of service with Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family in Paul, Daniel on Pole Line in Twin Falls, and Trent on Overland in Burley. The best. Your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Tomorrow, Dave Bigo, and then Bill Bullard with RCAF USA, and many, many more guests calling in, and we'll look forward to having you here. We always say at the end of the program, the way things were, the way things ought to be, and, of course, the 4 big important words, in God we trust. See you tomorrow morning at 8:06.